I am DM Zone. This is Gamer's Oasis. Let's get into it. Okay, guys. So we're going to talk real quickly about this Dungeon Dragon online game. We're going to have another one of these where I have Gary Gygax doing a narration. I'm going to try and stop talking whenever this takes off. As you can see here, though, with this video, I'm just starting up a chain. I'm going to be drinking a little bit of my energy drink. It's sort of like a Gatorade type of thing, non-alcoholic, but it's just a little bit to hydrate me before I head back to class, shall we say. Some of my videos have been have not been as often as I would like, or as I have maintained in the past, and that has a lot to do with being able to keep up with the schooling I'm going to better my life, my career, and to
This Delera
keep up with family and keep up with these videos while I'm making videos I'm passionate about. I have a lot of content coming out. You can expect this type of stuff.
The tomb opens up into a larger space. The underground structure is much bigger than the surface entrance would suggest.
Up here very soon. Let me go and talk about this, though, and I'll talk more about that in a little bit. All right, so this is Delera's tome series, whatever you want to call it. It's in the same area as the Dead Girl quest that you saw me do.
The sound of the bridge dropping is followed by that of caskets breaking open. Undead have arisen around you.
4 weeks ago, in Delera's tome, shall we say. You see Gygax's Gary is speaking here. Very important, in my opinion, for these quests to be remembered and to continue to exist. It's such an important part of how this game came about, was virtually things like this. If you could imagine, you show up over at Gygax's house, you go down to his basement. He has what they call a sand table, usually like 4 foot by like 8 foot, though some of them were 5 foot by like 10 foot, massive tables, covered in layers of sand, designed for like, this is water, this is a hill, this is a valley. Things were put on there for terrain, to kind of give it like a sense of what's going on around you, this type of thing. And then you'd have these battles. A lot of times they used miniatures as large as 52 millimeter. So pretty good size model. And that's because that's what they had available. They'd also use a lot of dime store toys, like what you'd find dinosaurs and this type of thing. They would modify it or hot glue things to it or carve things and this type of stuff. And that would be kind of how it is. Let me go ahead and talk real quickly about this dungeon. This dungeon has a lot of dark texture. Couldn't remember if I could jump out of the water. I have enough swim and jump skill to basically be at max or really close to it. I couldn't get it. I found it a clearer picture by looking under the water because there's less filters, so I could see where the ladder was coming out. Then I could go ahead and get out and go over there. Now, while it seems like there's a lot of twists and turns and you gotta go this way to go that way and all this, the reality is it's just a really windy, straight path with a lot of ambushes. As you can see here, I'm being ambushed by a bunch of undead and ghosts. This will continue to be basically how it is throughout this particular quest, dungeon, whatever you want to call it. And I experienced a tremendous amount of lag, as you can see right there, one of the early examples of it. But there'll be some really bad ones later. Okay, so you're over here playing at Gygax's house. He keeps track of what groups you're with, what fantasy, sci-fi thing.
Immediately following the sound of the second bridge dropping, you also hear the less distant sound of a door slamming shut behind you.
And you're doing a lot of Jordan Carpenter, Conan the Barbarian, R.R. Tolkien type stuff, you know, so you got the Fellowship of the Ring type things and the Hobbits and all these things. And that's why literally they introduced like the Hobbit race and the elves and the dwarves. And then they got, you know, slapped by...
The holy symbols of the sovereign host adorn the walls around you. This place was once hallowed.
The Tolkien estate and had to change the name to Hobbit because it was proprietary to their stuff. And that's why it talks about the fact that you should use the outdoor survival guide as part of the original rules. Not that the rules are so good for outdoor survival. It was kind of like Gygax was trying to speak into existence by putting pressure almost on people, saying, hey, we're going to use your product, we're going to positively talk about it, you give us the rights to do this, we'll both sell copies and everyone's happy. All rising tides, you know, rise all ships type of thing. A rising tide rises all ships, you know, that thing, whatever that exact phrasing is. And he didn't really have he knew of these people. He probably had a friendly interaction with them. I know that he had wrote and had worked with them on other things. But it was kind of like putting the cart before the horse type of thing. They probably were wanting to be negotiated and have, you know, something in their favor. Speaking of things being all laggy and out of sorts, this whole fight would be terrible. I remember this one. But, you know, I think it was not beneficial for him to kind of go down that road. And I think he did what was best for what he thought it was. And he ventured too far and was told, no, you cannot use, you know, this group of gods. If you're going to look at the demigods, gods, and, you know, heroes book that originally came out when we were using pantheons that had copyrighted names, which I don't know of all the ones. I mean, I wouldn't have picked up on that. I think a lot of that is almost mistaken. One of the ones that he picked up on that he used was the Cthulhu. And Cthulhu, for those who didn't know, also putting the cart before the horse, the Cthulhu franchise had decided to allow people to use their world. And here's again, AI not working correctly. It's been a problem for a long time in these games. My guy will just stand here until he dies. But anyways, allowed people to use their body of work, its body of work, H.P. Lovecraft's body of work, to go ahead and make their own thing. That's why Conan is the way Conan is. So this is not something that was necessarily done wrong or without permission. The permissions were sort of out there, they just were never officially finalized. And I've never really heard anything about H.P. Lovecraft really coming down on it. I just think they preemptively maybe stopped it before it became a problem. Other people, including TSR, Gygax themselves, came back and said it's not okay to use our stuff. When other companies were coming out, when like Trolls and Tunnels, for example, came out, and the Pedal of the Throne, wherever that is, Empire of the Pedal Throne, that is examples, I would say, of that type of thing, where TSR went after him. And there was many others. Dungeon the board game had a young competitor who was not following the spirit of what things should have been going on. He played a game. He didn't realize it was an actual product to be released. I don't think they advertised that as that. I think they just kind of said this is a thing. I think he made some improvements, but left a large portion of it the same. And what happened was he released it for like peer review, and people were like, that's Dungeon the board game. And they went ahead and didn't put that work out there, and everyone moved on and good to go type of thing. But yeah, I mean, they had their own versions of it, and now that game's had like 5 different editions that have come out, all owned by different people and different appearances, kind of changing with the additions of D&D. But initially it started out, and I've actually done a video on this board game itself, but initially it came out a little more like basic D&D. And I know that this particular group of games I've been playing looks a lot like all DDO has is undead. That is not the case. There's a lot of areas, and eventually I'll try and maybe interwork some of those in there so you can see like the Sawagan module, or go do like 8-bit or whatever it is, so you can see all the bandits and that type of thing, or go into the ogre areas. But we'll get there. So let's get back to with Gygax. So Gygax game, you would play, let's say you defeat the bandit king, speaking of bandits, and you defeated all of his henchmen and all that type of stuff, but you leave a person, and that person probably would be like the player that got away, and they'd have some story, and maybe they would go back and play again, and maybe they go back and play again, and eventually they would become some sort of like ruler or leader, and eventually, you know, they might develop a large enough following that they have their own army, and now the bandits are coming out with different size units and this type of stuff, and then maybe some of them become characters in their D&D games. You know, what better way to create the rivalry that you hear about in these early games than to have rivalry come from putting different alignment characters in the same group or this type of thing, and then putting in there the fact that it gives you actual power, that you actually have authority, or you are actually going after a certain group or judgment, you know, that type of thing, versus a made-up story. Like, you know, let's say the Tyranids have landed on a planet that is being controlled by gray wolves, and you know, they're like, oh, okay, and then you just kind of come up with it, and it's like, yeah, it kind of hits right. We hate Tyranids. They eat everything. Okay, great. Well, the reality is, if you had played the Tyranids for a while, and you had played the Grey Knights for a while, and you had named characters that were running around, and people that had lived and died, and lives that had been saved, then when the Tyranids came there to fight the Grey Knights, well, now it's a lot more personal. When you actually lose that sergeant, it has meaning and value. And when the sergeant saves the captain, that has value. And when you kill a specific Tyranid warrior that, you know, you've known for a while or whatever, or don't kill this warrior and it yet again survives, well, I think that has value. I think that, you know, there's stories to be told from that. And that is a lot of what Gygax was trying to do throughout this whole thing. And seeing that moving forward into like sci-fi games, and I think this is why they kind of jumped around genres a little bit, was because, you know, people get kind of bored, or they don't want to play this version, they want to play that version. And if you know, Metamorphosis Alpha came out right at the same time, and the final product might have been traveling on the Warden, a ship that Jim Ward had created, and that type of stuff. But at one point in time, we don't know what it was. We just know it was always supposed to be a sci-fi game, and that he and Gygax were really good friends. We don't know all the battles that could have happened, but obviously there was some sort of details that were brought in, and a sci-fi narrative that can be found in many modules. And when you hear him talk about several things, you can see these things kind of being told in that way. So, yeah, I kind of feel like a lot of this was, that's the reason why these things were the way they were. And that in the end, it became this big cluster of things. So when you look at these dungeons, the reason why the dungeons are so linear is because he had to try and put all this wealth of information, a whole library of information, into, you know, a 32-page book, which ends up being, you know, 64 pages front back. And he had to still put the map in there. And of course, you couldn't have 3 or 4 pages of map because you wouldn't have enough context for what was going on in there. And that's why a lot of times, like when you go to B2 and they have the Caves of Chaos, which are on purpose in the thing described as not completed, that they are left open for a DM's interpretation and for them to come up with things. They never imagined that we would want everything spoon-fed and given to us. They always assumed that we would want things kind of left open, so we weren't so corralled in. And for those who said, no, we want, you know, this and that, maybe, let me just go into a different genre real quick, a little different setup, and talk about Tracy Hickman's series, you know, the husband-wife team that made Dragonlance. The biggest complaint people had was the fact that it was so scripted and so difficult, and it felt so closed off, and it was like you were doing the novel. Which, you know, the novel was their home game turned into a book series, which I love the book series myself. I have several of the modules, and I plan to eventually play them just because I want to experience that. But I don't think you're ever going to make people happy. You're going to get people on both sides. You're going to get people who don't like sci-fi. You're going to get people who do like sci-fi. You're going to get people that want fantasy only. You're going to get people that want to be railroaded or love a good railroad because it gets the story out there easy for them. You're going to run into people who hate railroad and despise it and want as much freedom as possible. And you're just never going to make everyone happy.
You notice a note on the floor near a mangled body there. A chill passes through you as skeletons rise behind the bars to the sides of the room. They don't look entirely solid.
So, yeah. I guess you basically gotta find what works best for you. And you just have to aim for, if the person making it is making it the way you want, hopefully they make many like that. And that is why it is good to have, you know, the Monte Cooks and the David Cooks, and then have the Ed Greenwoods and the Hickmans. You know, you can have these different things without having to change who's producing the whole thing. Like, they all are working kind of in the same direction. So I'm probably going to talk more about this Gary Gygax thing, how the module will run, and while I'm doing this multi-part series. If this is something you want to know more about, or is there something specific you want, let me know before like Friday of next week, and I'll go ahead and try and add that to next week's recording. I'm probably going to record it, I'm guessing, on Thursday or Saturday of next week, and then it'll have it come back out on Sunday, and we'll do the next part in this series. So anyways, guys, I hope you guys like this. You maybe hear my dogs in the background. They're kind of letting me know they're hungry. And I'll see you guys in the next one, and keep rolling those dice. Bye.